Welcome back to America's Boating Club Sail Course. In this chapter, we're going to be covering sailing downwind. Here's an example of our points of sail again. Up until now, we've talked about beating upwind, and that's where most people focus their energy because that's probably the hardest. Sailing downwind is everything that's not beating from a reach all the way to a run. As you sail more away from the wind, you have to let the sail out more and more and more until it's out as far as it will go. When we're on a beam reach, that would be the one where the wind is coming across the side of our boat, the apparent wind. This is actually one of our fastest point of sail. And so what we're going to do to trim for this, we're going to let the sails out as far as until they start to luff, and then we're going to trim it in that point. We want to keep the telltales streaming back. We'll tension the boom vang to adjust the twist so that we can get the twist properly, so the top part of the sail is open a little bit more, eased a lot more than at the bottom. We can also then raise the centerboard up halfway. The reason we would raise the centerboard up is it helps us reduce drag, one, but more importantly, it'll move our center of lateral resistance back to resist some of the weather helm that we might feel at this point. In this heading, on this course, a lightweight boat like a Thistle or a Laser may actually even jump up on a plane and go really fast. If we have a lot of weather helm, the way to ease, to reduce the weather helm is to ease the main, and we might even ease it until it starts to luff to get the weather helm. The weather helm is more critical than a little bit of fluttering in the sails. When we're on a broad reach, that's when we're sailing a little farther downwind, even more than a beam reach. So the wind is well behind us, but not directly astern like when we're on a run. This is a fairly relaxed point of sail where it's just kind of fun sailing in this direction. We'll need to tension our boom vang to control the twist. When you're going upwind, you control the twist with the main sheet, but as the boom gets farther and farther out, the main sheet does not help us with twist at all. We have to use our boom vang in order to do that. The trim angle here is we ease the sail until it starts luffing and then trim it in just a tiny bit. Our goal is to keep the telltale streaming back. We'll also set a preventer. A preventer is simply something that you attach, a block and tackle that you attach the boom to the side of the boat, the tow rail or something else very strong to keep the boom from accidentally jibing on us. In addition, as we go downwind, we can raise our centerboard 3/4 of the way up. This is to help us with our weather helm. As the wind builds, our weather helm is going to increase more and more, and our angle of heel will also increase in this direction. When we're on a run, we're going straight downwind. The wind is coming right over our stern. This is actually the slowest point of sail. Often, if you're sailing for a long distance like that, you might set a preventer to prevent an accidental jibe when you're sailing. I hate going downwind. In central Illinois, the summers are hot. When the boat is moving on any of these other courses, we get a nice cooling breeze from the apparent wind. When we're going downwind, the boat is moving almost as fast as the wind, so that we don't really get that apparent wind cooling effect, and it's just plain hot. On our next slide, we're going to look at the wing and wing approach. In this case here, we've got the main on one side and the jib on the other side. This is difficult to sail because the wind is always wanting to try and the helmsman has to be really careful so that you don't do an accidental jibe. The whisker pole is necessary to hold the jib out so that it fills, and we need to keep the main off the shroud so we don't have extra wear. Bottom line of all this is it's a much more pleasurable time to sail off the wind just a little bit so that we get some aerodynamic lift from a broad reach to get us downwind. So here in this example, we've actually have a boat set up for a wing and wing situation. We have the main on one side, and then the jib is extended out on the other side of the boat. And then we've got it supported by a whisker pole. We've often tried on my boat to just wing and wing it for a little bit, and it's very difficult to do without a whisker pole because the wind is so variable. It fills and then it dries and then it stops and then the jib collapses and things like that. So it's very hard. One of the other things when we're sailing downwind is we need to pay attention to the wind strength. Because we're sailing with the wind, the apparent wind is very small no matter how strong the wind is blowing. So if the wind picks up, we might not notice that the wind is now blowing a lot harder than it was when we first came out, and we might need to have change our approach for sailing back, or at least be aware that the conditions have changed since we started. What might happen when we're sailing downwind is for the wind to sail by the lee, and what that means is the wind is shifting over just a little bit more on this side, and it tends to create an accidental jibe situation. And so we need to pay attention to that as we're driving downwind. Here's a look from above of when we're going downwind with our sail set in a wing and wing position, setup. So we've got our main. Our main is out here on this side, and then we have our jib extended out on the other side. This is our whisker pole, and then our jib sheet, which would normally be a lazy jib sheet, is now the one that's controlling our jib. Let's look at the effect that our center of effort, it has on our center of effort. Since we're going downwind, our center of effort here is pushing us in this direction. If we didn't have the jib over here, the center of effort of both sails would be on this side of the boat, which would then tend to cause it to turn as the wind builds. So by bringing the jib over on the other side, that tends to balance out our centers of effort. Here's also an illustration of the preventer that's attached to the boom, and it's attached to a deck cleat or something like that on here. And what the point of that is to keep the main on this side of this boat in case we happen to steer poorly or something like that and cause an accidental jibe. This will prevent it. When we're sailing downwind, we may want to change our direction to go, while we're going downwind. And it's, when we're going upwind, we use a tack. An attack is when we turn the bow into the wind and change course that way. A jibe, we have the opposite thing occurring. A jibe, the stern is going through the eye of the wind. So we're going to head this way, then we're going to turn, the sail is going to switch over, and then we're going to head in the other direction. So the steps, as we start our turn, we're going to pull the centerboard, or pull our main sheet in a little bit to control it better. And we're going to start turning ourselves downwind. As we keep turning, the main is then going to flop over to the other side, and then we'll bring the jib over to the other side too. And then we'll continue on our new course, and we'll trim the main out to its proper setting along with the jib. So to repeat, the difference between a tack and a jibe is a tack, the bow turns into the wind, and a jibe, the stern turns into the wind with the wind behind us. So as we're doing this, we need to control things. An uncontrolled jibe can be dangerous, and people can get hurt because the boom is going to fly over with great speed and power. The skipper has to keep the crew alerted when they're sailing in a situation where you might have an unscheduled jibe. And the crew has to be alert and ready to duck when the boom comes across with force. When I first learned how to sail, I thought sailing downwind would be when you could relax a little bit more, and upwind was when you had to really work hard. But the reality is I've probably capsized more going downwind than I ever have going up, because there's so many forces that, if your weight is in the wrong position, if you didn't switch from this side to this side in the middle of the jibe, you could capsize that way. If you get a gust of wind, and don't release the main out enough, you can do a death roll downwind and capsize to windward. And so there's just lots of opportunities for problems going downwind. Well, what goes up must come down. Let's look over our vocabulary for this chapter. A jibe is to change from one tack to another with the stern turning through the eye of the wind. A preventer is just a line that prevents the boom from doing an accidental jibe. A reach is any point of sail between close hauled and a run. And running is when we're going downwind with the wind directly astern. This concludes Chapter 15 on sailing downwind. Our next section, we will be looking at using a spinnaker going downwind.